In today's video, I give you an update to my Sentinel City 3D printable files for Marvel Zombies. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of December of 2024, we have 2 pledges for the Divergerhold Frontiers campaign. We have 2 pledges for the Legends of Darkshire Kickstarter. We have 5 pledges for the Dark Ages Medieval Building. We have $100 going towards the Forgotten Ruins of Drakenfell campaign. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page if you're interested in getting in on that. Bob is going to be making his draw this upcoming Sunday. So if you haven't seen my original video for this campaign that was on Kickstarter back in April of this year, go ahead and check it out. I go through the campaign and the initial prints that I made. But to be completely honest, since April, I didn't really print out anything more until recently. Dragon's Rest has been slowly putting out and fulfilling some of the stretch goals that unlocked during the campaign. Now, I think it's going to be a while, honestly, before he gets to customizing all of the individual buildings that's in the base set. But I have come up with a plan for printing out buildings in order to maximize them so that you don't have to print out individual buildings to recreate every single board that is in that base box. So go ahead and use the timestamps below if you want to skip ahead to that. But I know for most of you, you're actually not printing this out, so that's not going to be relevant. So I'm going to put that towards the end of the video if you are printing out this system and you want to know sort of my strategies for printing out pre-built buildings and to maximize it so that you don't have to print out every single one. But I do want to give a quick update. Since then, I have almost doubled the number of buildings that I've printed out. And because of that, I've been able to play all of the published MZ or zombie adventures that are in the base book. And the largest mission boards are actually the MZ4 as well as the MZ10. And I have enough buildings to actually be able to build out all of that. Now, as you can see here, this is actually from the MZ9 mission, and all of the extra buildings that I have for a smaller map, I actually put on top of the buildings just to give it height. But this has no gameplay value. It is purely aesthetic. And when the heroes go into a building, we just completely remove any of the buildings above the first floor. Also, since then, Ian has come out with some cool additions. For example, this water tower that you can place on top. Also, he's going to be coming out with these fire escapes and then this balcony over here as well. Now, I modified the files like I always tend to do because everything in my set is magnetized. It requires a little bit more support, so I did create supports for the balcony as well as these canopies. I went ahead and added a little support here because when it's magnetized, they fall off relatively easily, and by putting a little bit of supports on there, they don't fall off quite as easily. Also, this sign, I printed this out as well. What's super cool about this sign actually is that you can additionally put your phone in there if you want to have a video billboard, and I think that looks super cool. And then also I painted up a bunch of these signal lights that can go onto the board, which I think looks super cool. And then also there is a new building, the entrance into the subway, that is very unique from all the other buildings. So I went ahead and painted that up a little bit differently from all the other ones. But overall, I just multiplied the number of buildings that I had and streets in order to be able to build out the largest scenario sets in the book. To be completely honest, even though I prefer playing Black Plague, the fantasy themed version of Zombicide, we've been having a ton of fun playing this game more recently, really because I've been playing with folks who traditionally don't play miniature games or really complicated games, and that has a lower barrier to entry, I feel like, has less rules, has only one upgrade path, so the game is a little bit easier to play and understand. And to be perfectly honest, I think a lot of why we're having so much fun is because of the 3D board. It just provides so much more immersion. It provides so much more fun gameplay to the mechanics. And I have the added house rule of you don't know what's inside of the building until you open the door and we remove these roofs off. Whereas in original Zombicide, you know exactly where all the objectives are on the map. But in this case, by having these buildings, you can sort of hide what is inside of them. Also, another house rule that I really enjoy is that we actually use cars as the Avenger sign. Rather than throwing the sign around, I do have a car or two on the board that the players can throw this. Once they throw it once, we flip it over and put it upside down, and then they can throw it a second time and it'll go away. So that's one feature that I've used that I think is super fun, is utilizing some of the terrain a little bit more. So that's really fun too. We have played through about half of the scenarios in the book. I haven't played any of the hero version, the non-zombie version, because I think the mechanic that's found with playing the zombie heroes is more fun in managing your hunger mechanic. So overall, we haven't felt compelled yet. Maybe after a while, maybe once we play all the scenarios, we might dive into the hero side. I did back Deceased, which doesn't have a zombified version of any of the heroes there. And I think that's because DC didn't want their characters to be zombified. But I might come up with some house rules, because it might be relatively easy to convert those into zombie versions. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and just play the regular hero mode, which I don't think is quite as fun as the zombie version, as you're going around chomping on these bystanders, and I think that's just thematically more fun to play with. But overall, I think this 3D board is one of my favorite ones, just because it looks so real. It just, if I was a model railroader, I think seeing this building, the streets, all of the terrain pieces, it makes the details come out and make it look realistic. And I think for my players, they really like the game because of it. I don't know if we would be playing it as much if we didn't have a 3D board, but it is so thematic and it is so fun to move these miniatures around, your superhero around on the board. And as I mentioned in my first video, even though this is 28mm, I think it works perfectly well for games like Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is more 40mm. Most people don't notice that it's a smaller scale. They just think that having 3D terrain is super cool. So overall, again, I'm super happy that Ian came out with this set. I think it is super cool. The fact that it's modular makes it so that you can make any configuration that you want. Although honestly, I was looking at the X-Men Resistance, where all of the scenarios are in the mansion, and again, most of that is hero mode. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to print out all of that, because the modularity doesn't work quite as well with the mansion, because they're just more interlocking rooms and whatnot. So again, because I'm not playing hero mode, that doesn't bother me as much. I have plenty of games to play with the original box and this book. I know Ian is going to be coming out with outdoor or park terrain to go with the set, because that will fit more what's happening with X-Men Resistance. But I'm not 100% sure how all that is going to work out, because it's been relatively slow in getting each of the pre-built rooms for all of the maps, which was one of the stretch goals for the campaign. But go ahead and stick around, and I will show you sort of my strategy for how I built pre-built rooms that can recreate almost every room that is in the original tiles from the first box. I hope during this holiday season you're able to get either some gaming in or some hobbying done. I've taken a couple vacation days during this time, and I've been painting up more of the zombie superheroes and their corresponding non-zombified versions to play as heroes when they spawn on the board, as well as a good number of bystanders. So we've been having a ton of fun. We've been playing this a lot, which has been very, very enjoyable. Go ahead and make a comment below if you have been playing this game, and especially if you've printed out the Sentinel City 3D STL files, and if your group has really had a lot of fun playing this game too. And in my original video, I did have a painting tutorial, so make sure to check that out if you're interested in knowing how I painted this set. Otherwise, happy printing, happy gaming. We'll see you next time. So if you haven't purchased the files yet, even though the Kickstarter is over, go ahead and go to Dragon's Rest and then click on Modern. and then click on Sentinel City, and you can purchase the whole set here for $90. And then once you have access to the files, it will take you to My Mini Factory, and you can hit download, and you'll see that my mods are all in one folder. So give Ian a little bit of time, but this should be updated soon with all the modded files that I'm going to show you next. So the first one here is I did create a 2x2, and true to my word, I just kept empty slots on all 4 sides so that it has maximum versatility. I did offset one of the doors here because it seemed like I just wanted to create a little bit of variety, but it doesn't affect the overall map since you have all of the other 3 sides with them in the middle. So you can buttress these right up against other buildings if you need to, but this is one of the available files. I was able to fit this on my Bamboo Labs printer and was able to print it out as one piece because there was no reason for me to need to separate these. Now I created another file here because I wanted one that had interior walls on one side as shown here. And these are all for the 1x2 rooms that you can have. I think there's 3 different versions of that. And I can stick on there this end, and it will fit together just like this. And it has these 2 interior walls. So that's one option. This isn't the greatest piece because technically I should have these openings right here to be able to match up with all the other ones. But that's available for you in case you want that. This next one is the mod Prebuilt MZ3V-8V because this works for both 3V and 8V. And it has interior walls here on this side. And it is meant to match up with this file, the mod Prebuilt MZ3V-8V02. And you can actually have it go together like this to create one of those rooms that I mentioned before. But the reason why I kept this separate is so that this could work with some of the other tiles that require a long piece like this. It can actually be used for tile 3V if you wanted to look that up. And then this one here is the mod Prebuilt MZ4R or 9R. This is the one that I showed you before. It has interior walls on both ends. And this one is meant to go on either end, like so. And I went ahead and clipped these together because this works for 2 of the different tiles, 4R and 9R. So all of these are available for you in my Gaming Geek folder for you to be able to download and print out. And as I mentioned before, in addition with the ones that Ian made, these ones are really versatile. I also have in there my previous ones that are the base one that has the openings on all 4 sides. Feel free to make a comment in the video description below if you have a question or need guidance with how to utilize these. But I hope that this is helpful for you. All right, so to create these spawn points for the buildings, I found this file online, but I modified it. I sliced it in half so that it could be printed flat like this in 2 pieces. And then once it prints out, I glued it back to back with some super glue. And then I painted this stripe down here, this orange stripe at the base black, so that the base is completely black. And then the other mod I made was with these traffic lights, where for some reason this support here, when you peel it off, it leaves a mark. So it wasn't quite separated, so I went through and I sliced the support so that it would remove without remaining attached. And then I also increased the hole size so that it could slip in easier out of these bases in here. Otherwise it is really hard, and I think it was meant to be in there permanently, but I wanted to be able to remove it relatively easily, so I widened the hole there. So those are the mods that I made with this file. And then also with these canopies, I also added this bracket down here at the bottom just because since I'm not using the clips, I'm using magnets, it just stays up a lot easier with those brackets on the side.